Good afternoon, everyone. Tom Kline from Better Vantage Point. Hope you're having a good day. Today, I want to talk about problems. We all have them, and I want to encourage everyone. If you've got a problem that you don't know how to solve, call me. I may be able to help. I won't run the meter on you. Just take a phone call. So feel free to reach out. And if I don't know the answer, I might know somebody in my network who does know the answer. So always feel free to reach out either by email or telephone or DM, whatever is convenient for you. So let's talk about how to prevent problems. And there's no better topic than to talk about the Federal Trade Commission, because the Federal Trade Commission has many different triggers, I guess is the right word, and things that they're looking for. So I sat through a presentation and they talked about the different things that the FTC is looking for. I thought that was very much worth talking about today. And so I'm going to go over those topics with you each very briefly. Of course, if you have any questions about it, feel free to call me after. So the first thing, and I talk about this all the time, is advertising. If you aren't advertising according to the FTC regulations, then by the time they walk into your dealership or into your business, they already kind of have leverage over you because you're not following the advertising regulations. So the advertising regulations have what's called trigger terms. And trigger terms are, for example, if you have a payment, then you also have to have the APR, you have to have how much down payment, you have to have what the monthly payment is, and then is that plus taxes and processing fee. While we're on the topic of processing fee, some states have processing fees, some states have doc fees, and make sure whatever it is that's on the disclaimer on your website is in accordance with the law of your state. Oftentimes, I can audit websites, and that is different. There's no, the website doesn't comport to what the state law is. So that's the first thing that you need to look at after you look at the trigger terms. Next, and I see this mistake on many, many websites, is there's no asterisk next to the sales price that ties the disclaimer at the bottom of the page or next to it to the sales price. So there has to be some way for a customer to know that that the sales price does not include the taxes, the licenses, the processing fee, or the doc fee, whatever it's called in your state. And it's not good enough to say, well, everybody knows that, because the advertising guidelines, including NADA, has put out advertising guidelines that say this very clearly. The advertising guidelines say that unless that asterisk is clear and conspicuous, and the disclaimer has to be clear and conspicuous as well. But if that asterisk isn't clear and conspicuous tying it, then it's considered included into the sales price that you're advertising. So that's roughly $3,000 per car, right? By the time you put your processing fee and the sales taxes in, it's a lot of money. And that's potential class action exposure. And that class action exposure, the numbers get big very quickly, right? So $3,000 times 300 cars is, I think, $90,000, right? And that's just for 1 month, and then it's for however many months that the statute allows that to go on. And typically, most dealerships only have $1 million of what's called truth in lending coverage. This would be potentially a truth in lending issue, depending on the exact parameters and the exact specifics of the problem. But if you don't have more than $1 million in truth in lending coverage, then potentially you're exposed for this. So this is a very serious thing. And the FTC uses this non-compliance as leverage against you. And then they start sending out subpoenas asking for information, asking to look at deals, and they're gonna look at your selling practices and exactly how you're selling. So, problems at dealerships, I've said, you've heard me say this before, they come on two legs. They're either customers or they're employees, and typically they're disgruntled. And one way that they get disgruntled is if you have a price on your website that shows one thing, but when they show up, you say, "Oh, well, that price, and you can't get that price for whatever the reason, whether it's a supply issue, whether it's there really are no good reasons for this. The advertised price is something that everyone should be able to get if they walk in, which also includes meaning that you can't stack rebates um, that you can't actually get together. So you can't get, let's just say, a first time buyer's rebate with trading in the same brand. Now, it's possible that you can, but that could happen. But that's just one example I'm coming up with. If you stack rebates on your new car side, that's adding rebates together that no human being can actually get, then that's also considered false advertising, and would open up the possibility of you getting sued for what's called UDAPT, or unfair, deceptive, abusive acts and practices. And that's when you get triple damages and punitive damages, depending on what state you're in and what the laws say. So be really careful about that rebate stacking, because that's something they look for as well. Further, further, they're looking for compliance with the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA. And the Equal Credit Opportunity Act makes sure, or says, that you're supposed to treat everyone the same. And so whatever markup that you take, whatever that is, should be the markup that you have on everyone, including the protected classes. So, and that also includes on the products that you sell in F&I, selling those products for the same price. That can also be a potential problem. So there are risks to not doing that, and that's where we get into the conversation of risk mitigation and what are the risks for selling those products at different prices. And obviously one of them is that you are found to be guilty of discrimination against protected classes, which is why it's recommended by the FTC that you sell all of your products for the same price. So, and the FTC has made it very clear in recent years that they do not like these aftermarket products that we sell in F&I. And they're working on trying to not have us be able to sell them. So we don't want to give them the ammunition to do that. So that's something else that if you have disgruntled customers who say that you baited and switched them on the price, that when they complain to the FTC, they can clearly see the advertising violations on the website, as anybody can. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out and I'll look at your specific website. But the complaints is where problems start. For example, complaints were the reason that Napleton Automotive in the Midwest was fined $10 million, according to the FTC press release. That started with upset customers. Likewise, according to the FTC press release, Passport Automotive, which was fined $3.3 million. And so the FTC has really picked up its enforcement activity significantly over the past couple of years, as have the attorneys general. And you might have heard me mention this before. The former attorney general for Massachusetts, who's now the governor, had been active at trying to regulate car dealers and went after a few. The attorney general of New Hampshire in December went after Dan O'Brien Kia and fined them $1.2 million. And when these regulators get involved with these dealerships, one of the things that happens is they will have the dealership sign a consent order. In Dan O'Brien Kia, as I recall, the consent order is for 5 years, and they also have a compliance monitor that they had to hire. And what the consent orders say is they tell the dealer how they have to do business. And it's very clear and it's laid out. They have to keep track, for example, of all their advertisements and keep copies of them. And they have to follow the rules of what the consent order says, because they entered into it presumably under the premise that they wouldn't have to pay more in fees. And I have not seen those consent orders in particular, but that's what happens. That's what the consent orders are about. And I've read from the FTC that they have consent orders up to 20 years. And so imagine that you had to sign a consent order now that said that your business was going to keep doing things until the year 2043. It's really hard to fathom that you would be required to follow those stringent rules for that 20 years. So these are really very serious things, and the FTC's fines are $50,120 per violation, and they've often under Section 5 of the FTC Act, they've left very loose what a violation is, and they can come after you for any of these things. Of course, if they come in for customer complaints or anything else, they're going to be looking at the new safeguard regulations. So let me spend a minute or two on the safeguard regulations. They were supposed to be in effect at your dealership on June 9th. The Graham-Leach-Bliley Act goes back to, I believe it was May of 2003. The new regulations passed October of 2021. The original deadline was December 9th of 2022, but they extended it for 6 months, and we just went past it. And this has got a myriad of rules and regulations. You can check my YouTube channel. I have a one-hour program where I go through a lot of the specifics, kind of as a roadmap to what to do. But in short, you're required to protect customer data, and that's the whole point of it. So the FTC rewrote the definition of PII for personally identifiable information. And PII is now includes your email address, your cell phone number, and of course your address and your social security number and your date of birth. But what that means is that, for example, now when you put your a customer puts their information in like a service schedule because they want to service an oil change, then that information is supposed to be encrypted between the service schedule and when it gets to your service advisor. It goes into your CRM, and the encryption is supposed to be there both at rest and in transit. So this really complicates things for dealers because of all the various places where data is flowing back and forth to the DMS, back and forth to the website. All the vendors that you hire are required to sign agreements stating that they're going to protect customer information. That's part of it. Part of it is you have to have an information security program. You have to designate a person who's in charge of the program. You still can't leave pay stubs and stuff out on the desks. So you should install door closers in the F&I manager where a lot of that information is kept. You have to have multi-factor authentication as an example. These are wide and deep regulations. If the FTC comes in, again, the fines are $50,120. It's very important that if you haven't started working on that, please do start working on it. If you have any questions, again, feel free to call me on that. And then the other things that the FTC, just to kind of cap off the last things, is credit reports and the used car rule. Now, on credit reports, remember that in order to comply with the FDCPA, the Fair Credit, I'm sorry, the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if a customer comes in and attempts to buy a car, but you pull their credit, you as the dealership, unless you're financing that customer, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of attorneys about this, and there's really no consensus, but I'm going to give you the conservative thing to do. When a customer comes in to buy a car and you pull the credit report, you as the dealership are required, in my opinion, to send a letter that says, we as the dealership are not financing you. You may get financing from another bank or a financial institution, but we are not financing you, right? And some dealers say, yeah, but we're not financing them. And I say, yeah, but you could if you wanted to. And they say, yeah, but we don't. I said, but it's your choice. It's your option. You're the one who isn't financing it. And so I would encourage you to send out a letter. The fines and penalties for non-compliance on FCRA are incredible. They are very expensive. And again, you open yourself up for class action because people are going to be similarly situated, right? Every customer who walks in who applies for credit, every single one of those customers is similarly situated. So however many hundreds or thousands of people, you open yourself up to that liability versus spending $1.25 per customer and making sure that you're covered on this. So that's the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And then the used car rule is making sure that your FTC stickers are done properly. And I walk on lots all the time and they're rarely done correctly. You know, you have to check the right box if the manufacturer's warranty is still in effect. You have to check the right box if you certify the car, then a used car warranty is still in effect. If you are giving out a warranty, let's say a 50/50 for 30 days, just checking the box and writing it on the buyer's guide is not good enough. According to the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, if a customer asks for a copy of that warranty, you have to be able to hand them a copy. And if you don't, that's another potential problem. So all kinds of potential problems for the FTC. Keep your customers happy. That's the best way to keep the FTC out of your business. If you have any questions, again, feel free to call me. I'm happy to help, and I'll help you in any way I can. And that's why the company logo or slogan is "We get you out of trouble and keep you out of trouble," and that we navigate risk and solve problems. So that's what I have for today. I'm Tom Kline. Thanks for seeing things from a better vantage point, and hope you have a great day.